It's time to talk LSU baseball with Mike Scarborough and Kendall Rogers of D1 Baseball. This is Batter Up.
All right, Mike Scarborough here with Kendall Rogers and D1 Baseball. LSU drops 2 out of 3 at Texas A&M, drops 1 spot in the D1 Baseball poll, and it doesn't get any easier. Arkansas comes to town this weekend after they swept Texas. It's just amazing what we're seeing in the SEC, Kendall, and especially when great teams go on the road.
Yeah, there's no doubt, man. It's hard to win on the road in this league. And I think, going back to last week, there might have been a few people watching this that were a little surprised that I would have picked A&M to win that series, but it's tough to win on the road in this conference. And also there was the factor of A&M really needed that series. I think if they lose that series, they're going to Athens in a situation to where they probably need to win that series in Athens. Now, after winning the LSU series, they have a little bit of breathing room. They can, they could just avoid getting swept in Athens, and they're a slam dunk team for the postseason. So a lot of urgency on A&M's part. Not to say that LSU, winning the weekend and didn't want to win the series, but there was just a little urgency there from A&M. But I thought as a whole, my takeaway on LSU for the weekend is we need to see Monster Milam get going offensively. Right now, I hate to even call a guy that important a liability, but right now, in terms of his offensive production, I mean, it's nearing kind of almost being like an automatic out.
Well, do you have it in front of you? You're always great with having stats in front of you. What is he batting now in SEC play? The number was bad last week. And
while we're looking that up, the one thing I will say is if you look back at the weekend, he's still playing elite defense. Sometimes you see guys
yes, he is.
That'll start struggling offensively, and that kind of carries over to their defense. That's not happening with Monster. I mean, if the double play that he turned over the weekend, where it was like a unassisted double play, like he went to second and then went to first without tossing the ball to second. Like, people don't realize that to kind of almost laterally move like that and make that play is incredibly difficult. So that was really impressive. So in conference play, Steven is hitting, 205. That's just not going to cut it. So you know what?
That doesn't match up with him as a player.
It doesn't. And so, I mean, honestly, the guy's hitting 205. I mean, he is a liability offensively right now, and he's just way too good of a player to continue down that path. I think there's got to be a run in him at some point. Derek Curiel didn't really get going to the final game of the weekend. So just LSU offensively, I thought Ethan Fry actually had some really good at-bats. I would like to see him, in the everyday lineup moving forward. I just like the power presence that lineup. I think Jared.
Yeah, you got to give Aggie pitchers some credit.
Yeah, you do. I mean, I thought, and this has kind of been the case the last few weeks, is A&M starting pitching, which is why we all kind of think they're really dangerous in the postseason, is because Ryan Prager, Justin Lampkin, Miles Patton is like the consummate Game 3 starter. He's going to pump strikes in there. He's going to work quick. He doesn't allow you to get in the groove as a hitter. And so, yeah, give their pitching staff a lot of credit. But I do think there's a lot more
I'll say this.
And a bigger ceiling for LSU's offense.
Before we went live, that I watched all 3 games from beginning to end, and that was the most boring 3 games in a row that I've ever watched. And I'm baseball coaches like Jay and others love those type of games. It doesn't matter to them, but man, it really, it almost put me in a funk beyond baseball all weekend long. It was
really slow. And what's kind of funny is it was almost like in a way like a typical SEC series, like 1 or 2 plays on Friday determine the outcome, and 1 or 2 pitches on Sunday determine the outcome. I will say this though. This is my one big takeaway from the weekend. And Jay's my guy, but I would have liked to see Jay cook with Chase Shores a little longer. I think
Chase, I knew you were going there.
Yeah, I just think Chase, he's been a guy that, when it's going good, it's going good. When it's going bad, it's going bad. And I thought we saw a really good Chase Shores. He commanded the zone well. He had A&M off balance. He had Caden Sorrell, by the way, off balance. And I think back to the first Saturday game when LSU brought Cowan out of the bullpen. I don't know if they picked up on something. I don't know if he was tipping his pitches. But if you think back to that first game on Saturday, A&M had some really hard hit balls against him. And I think in that situation on Sunday, with the way that Chase was throwing, I would have stayed with him after seeing how hard they hit Cowan in that very quick outing on Saturday. I would have liked to see what he can do, because at the end of the day, LSU with Arkansas at home this weekend, they had a little bit of flexibility in that A&M series. And I think if you're Jay, you get to see how Chase Shorts can finish out a game. And that could be a game changer come postseason time. Now, if you're Chase Shores, you're going into, let's say, the Arkansas series, and you come out of the bullpen and you throw 2 innings. All of a sudden, in the back of your mind, you're thinking, okay, are they going to go to someone else here, or are they going to let me ride this thing out? And I would have liked to see him finish that. I thought he threw really well.
Compare what LSU saw in A&M to Arkansas's pitchers.
Yeah, I think the big thing with Arkansas is the stuff will be a little bit heavier. If you look, let's go day by day here. Looking at Friday, Zach Root and Ryan Prager. Ryan Prager will eat you alive with command of a fastball and changeup. Zach Root will do fastball changeup, but Root has a very effective curveball. If you go back and look at his start, and you can find it on YouTube, but if you go back and look at his start against Texas, really, really good command of the breaking ball. It's going to be key for guys like Jared to lay off of that breaking ball on the outside part of the plate. Typically, he'll throw it a couple inches off the plate and kind of hope that you'll fish for it. Saturday is where the big-time stuff comes into play. Gage Wood was injured earlier this year. He was their Friday guy at one point. Against Texas, 9 strikeouts, no walks. Again, it's up to 95, 96. It's electric stuff. And then in the middle of the game, to kind of make this, we were talking about A&M a second ago, but just to make this A&M related, they use Gabe Gackle in a lot of the same ways. If LSU fans remember the way that Jim Schlossnagle at A&M used Chris Cortez last year, he took his premier arm and he brought him out of the bullpen in like the 4th inning. And you know what they did? They rode that dude until they were able to turn the game over to Evan Ashenbach in like the 8th and 9th innings last year. That is kind of the way that Arkansas is using Gabe Gackle. He's elite stuff. It's going to be a plus slider. It's going to be a fastball up to 97, and it's really good stuff. And so they will get as much length as possible out of that guy. I think Landon Vital-Cheese on Sunday, I think he's good. I think he can absolutely be hit. And so I think the big key for LSU is, getting Zach Root out of the game early on Friday. If they can do that and put a little bit of stress on Arkansas's bullpen going into Saturday and obviously going into Sunday, I think that sets up well.
LSU obviously tied for 3rd in the SEC. I had them in the preseason winning 19 SEC games. It looks like I'm probably going to nail it if they take 2 out of 3, or if they take 1 out of 3 this weekend and then sweep South Carolina. But if it's 2-2, I think they get there. And
yes,
Jay said something today. If the SEC season ended, and he's talking about the craziness of the league, and just it is what it is, and you don't sweat when you lose 2 out of 3 on the road. 14 teams, and it would be in the tournament. Last year was a record at 11.
Yeah.
If it was today, it would be 14. Is he right?
Yeah, today would be 14 because Mississippi State is trending towards 13 or 14 conference wins. They've got a top 35 RPI. I do wonder, is someone like Kentucky, I think Kentucky has OU this weekend. I do think if Kentucky lost that series, I think UK is a prime example of a club that could kind of work its way out of the mix. But yeah, right now, man, we're looking at a 14 team league in terms of the postseason. The only thing that concerns me about that is typically if the committee is willing to give you 14 bids, you're going to take it on the chin somewhere else. So I do wonder if the SEC gets 14 teams in, then one of these fringe hosts like Ole Miss or Oklahoma or somebody like that, do they not make it in as a host because the SEC has so many teams in the field?
What's your number going to be? What do you think it actually ends up being?
The number of bids? I'm going to say 13 by Selection Monday.
So
I'm going to say somebody
13.
gets knocked out. I think it's going to be Kentucky. I really do. I think Kentucky, it won't be fair, but I think Kentucky will somehow get snubbed.
Yeah, Jay addressed that earlier today. We had Jay and a couple of players like we normally get, and he did talk about LSU's hitting woes and the things that they do, and they're not budging off of it. And I just wonder, is this the weekend where they snap out of that? Is this a home series kind of going to hit at the right spot for them to, some of these guys make their way? I don't have any, I don't think a guy like Curiel's anything like that will last any length of time for him. But the Milam thing is absolutely a head scratcher. And then there's some others that continue to struggle at the plate. Even guys who will hit a home run, but then, you know, you look at them over a week of at bats, and it's they're just not, as a team, batting well at all. And I mean, we're going on too many weeks now of this.
Yeah, you got to feel like it's coming. I mean, I know that's not the answer the LSU fans want to hear. Like, they're probably thinking, okay, you know, you guys have been saying that shit for for 3 weeks now. I mean, you had the one game against Tennessee, but I mean, you look up and down this lineup, like there's so many guys in this lineup that I feel are so much better than what they're hitting in conference. Ethan Fry, I just talked a lot about how much I liked his ABs over the weekend, hitting 258 with 338 OBP in conference. Josh Pearson, who we all think is a pretty good player, 258, 373 OBP.
What's Dickinson?
Dickinson in conference is actually 294 and 450. Pretty good.
And Braswell?
Yeah, he's at 259 and 375. So the common denominator here with a lot of these guys is that outside of Chris Stanfield and outside of Danny Dickinson, there is not an LSU player other than Derek Curiel that's even close to a 400 OBP in conference. Jake Brown, again, another premium athlete, 241 with a 328 OBP. And then Jared Jones, who we all love. I mean, we all think, Bear is a clutch player, 252 with a 325 OBP. So, yeah, those have to improve, and I think they will improve.
All right. Well, we're brought to you each and every week by attorney Kenneth P. Haines, and so let's hear from him.
Kenny Haines is a proud 1989 graduate of LSU Law School with a passion for justice. Kenny stands out as the only lawyer in the state, board certified in both appellate practice and family law. Drawing from 34 years of trial experience, Kenny has navigated the most complex aspects of real people's lives. If you need help in Northwest Louisiana with a family issue, legal issue, or a highly skilled trial attorney, call Kenny, 318-222-2100.
All right, Kendall. Kenny's question is, does LSU have to win 2 out of 3 in each of the next 2 series to be a top 8 national seed?
I think if they lose this series and win the last one, I think they're fine. I really do. I mean, I think if you look at, the overall metrics, they're in their favor. Just kind of pulling it up just so I'm 100% accurate here. But, 8 RPI, 17 wins. It's quad 1, quad 2 teams. 28-4 at home, good league record. I think if they split these last 2 series, I think they're good.
Yeah, it's he talked about that today as well. It's all about getting that host all the way through, and he doesn't talk about it with his team.
Yeah, it's a big difference between playing a super at the box and having to go on the road and do it.
Yeah. So now with the SEC tournament being single elimination, and you have that before you even get to the SEC tournament, does the fact that the SEC tournament is single elimination, does that kind of like make in the views of the committee, a one and done tournament? I mean, how does the SEC tournament hurt and help?
I think the only way it helps a team, I think the only way it actually, I don't know if it even hurts a team anymore.
That's what I'm saying. It's got to be where it doesn't hurt anybody anymore.
Yeah, I think it can only help you. Let's say Kentucky was at 12 wins going into Hoover and rattled off 3 straight wins. In that case, I think it can help you, but I don't think anybody's hosting a regional based on what they do in Hoover. I mean, unless the committee comes out and says that's a reason why they're hosting or whatever, I won't believe it.
And you really have to do something amazing for it to help you, right?
You do, yeah. I mean, it's like the basketball tournament doesn't tend to help you, which makes everybody wonder, especially single elimination, like why even have a tournament? because I
agree
think
with you.
attendance is going to be down with a single elimination format.
Yeah, I agree with you when you said it last week. I wasn't even thinking it from the perspective of a hardcore college baseball fan, SEC baseball fan that takes multiple days off, has the hotel rooms, and then your team loses quickly. You know, do you stick around for multiple days? That's got to hurt attendance. Particularly the fan bases like LSU that will watch a lot of baseball games other than the Tigers.
There's no question. Yeah, it's definitely going to hurt. I think that at least. We'll see what happens, though.
All right. Other series around the league that are most interesting to you this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, how about Florida, Texas? I mean, Texas goes on the road last week in Arkansas, and I think you and I kind of talked about it. We thought that if the Horns were going to have a stinker, that would be it last weekend. That was a stinker and a half for them. They not only lost a series, they got pummeled. I think it was a good wake-up call. I think if you're Jim Schlossnagle, you're okay with that. It's a wake-up call a little bit like, hey, you guys aren't all that. Like, you still have to show up and play really good baseball in this league. And so I think Texas going back home to face Florida, I think is really important for both teams. Obviously, Florida's in a really good spot. I mean, Florida is on a roll right now. Liam Peterson's throwing well. Luke Hyman and the offense is, even despite the injuries, continues to do a really good job. Vanderbilt at Tennessee. We just talked about what LSU needs to do the rest of the way, but Tennessee's in a position now where if the Volunteers lose that series this weekend, they're probably going to have to win the Arkansas series at the end of the regular season in Fayetteville to be a top 16. Like, I think they're out of the top 16 if they lose these last two series. That would be 6 series losses in their last 7 weekends. I don't care who the hell you are. You should not be hosting as a top 16 if you've lost 6 out of your last 7 series.
Yeah. Last week on the show, I mentioned that I was asking if Vitalo had mellowed, and then he gets ejected last weekend. So key to the series for LSU this weekend, and how do you see it going for the Tigers?
Yeah, I think the biggest way to beat Arkansas is just get deep into the bullpen. I mean, they've got arms, but I do think if you can get past, a couple of their frontline guys, I think they can be had a little bit. I do think if you can split the first 2 games, I like their chances if you put the pressure on a guy like Beitelshees. I was ultra encouraged by Kaysen Evans. We hadn't even mentioned him yet, but I thought Kaysen, given the packed house, big series finale, close to home, as a Houston kid, I thought he threw exceptionally well. He had Adam sped up all day long, had really good command of the fastball to the glove side, really good command of the off-speed stuff, and he is their number 3 starter.
If you have to get to Kaysen Evans and do the damage, you need to do it in that first inning. He doesn't like first innings,
right? Because if you can't get him there, you're not going to get him. Again, it kind of goes back to the discussion that you and I had last week, and we were talking about how does Jay use him, and it goes back to that discussion. Evans looks like a guy that kind of needs a predefined role, like. When he doesn't know for sure that he's going to start, he gets off to a little bit of a slow start in the first inning. He ends up settling down. But, I do think moving forward, I do wonder if they just stick with him, solidly in that role, especially with Shorts throwing well over the weekend. And that and maybe you see because of that, he gets off to a little bit faster.
Well, and look, and it's not just him.
It's worked out for him the last 2 weeks.
LSU needs to see Cowan revert back. He didn't have a very good weekend either.
I would suggest this, and don't get too mad at me here, Jay. I would suggest this if you're Zach Cowan LSU, and it's the 9th inning, and you're going against Wahiva Aloy. I would not suggest throwing a 92-mile-an-hour fastball right down the middle, which is what they did to Caden Sorrell in that 3-1 home run.
Yeah,
would not recommend that.
Yeah. Kendall, D1 baseball, give them the code, and where are you going this weekend? Are you doing everything from the home base?
I'm command center, man. I was in Baton Rouge 2 weeks ago. I was ended up I was going to only make 2 games last weekend because of the weather. Ended up making all 3, so gonna sit back and just watch the action from here. But yeah, man, we'll have a lot of coverage on D1 baseball. I want to say Mark or something like that's going to be in Baton Rouge this weekend, and we've actually got our updated position power rankings out this week. So top 150 starting pitchers. Obviously, Zach Cowan, who we just mentioned, very high up the relievers list. Curiel, very high up the outfielders list. Let's just say a lot of LSU flavor in our power rankings this week. So check them out.
All right, Kendall. Everybody check out D1 Baseball and Kendall on X. And we'll talk to you next week.
You got it, brother. Be good. Thank you.
All right, Kendall. Thanks, bud.
Later, man. Later.